Good evening, Broncos fans. Welcome to the Orange and Blue View podcast with Ron White and myself, Thomas Hall, where we bring you the latest and greatest of Broncos country news and happenings. So, welcome to the show on this Saturday night. Thank you for joining. And I'm going to try and get the other streams in real quick. We are working on it on our own. So, let me do that real quick as we are getting started here, and then we'll roll. All right, the streams are coming in, and it looks like we are good to go. How you doing today, Ron?
I am doing well, Thomas. I know we've gotten some good news and some movement on the coaching staff for Sean Payton, so that's good. But I'm looking forward to, of course, we'll talk about that. But I'm looking forward to discussing free agency, one of my favorite times
Yeah.
of the year, and kind of looking forward to who can, you know, who do the Broncos see as potential prospects, right, to come and help this team out? Some of the needs on the roster. So looking forward to diving into that conversation.
Yeah, well, let's do that in just a minute. Let's touch on a little bit about the coaching news. It's not huge news because we kind of saw it was coming, but Joe
Mhm.
Lombardi has been announced as officially the offensive coordinator. But we saw the last couple of days that he was rumored to be hired as some sort of coordinator position, and since the other two were filled, it was pretty obvious that he was going to be offensive coordinator. But so let's talk about that just for briefly. How do you feel about the Joe Lombardi offensive coordinator um, hire?
Uh, Mixed feelings. You know, ultimately, we know Sean Payton's going to be the offensive play caller. I know in the past, Joe Lombardi's offenses, him from a coordinator perspective, have been average, a little bit above average. We'll see how he maximizes these players with Sean Payton's scheme. But I think with Sean Payton at the helm, I do have more trust, more faith that Lombardi can get the best out of these players and maximize their potential. But let's see what happens. So it's more of a wait and see type thing for me now, Thomas. Again, judging on the past, it's been so, right? They haven't really, those offenses haven't been the best, but I think, with Peyton's expertise and experience, I think we'll be just fine.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it. It's not an exciting hire to me. It was kind of one of those we all saw it coming, and when
Yeah.
he started interviewing other people, I was a little bit more excited. He didn't just run and grab Joe Lombardi because he was available and he was familiar with him, but
Right.
with Peyton at the helm, I think it's okay, and I think I think we're going to see a better offense, so that's what matters. I just
Yep.
hope that Joe Lombardi is puts it all together and has some really good offenses as we see going forward in 2023. But yeah, not a big surprise. But just like say, Dylan is coming in. He's staff writer with the Mile High Huddle. Thank you for coming in, saying
Thanks, Billy.
"Sup Broncos country." Make sure you hit that like button. Do so. Yeah, hit the like button. Share on all the platforms if you can, and subscribe to Mile High Huddle so you can get those alerts and be ready for us on Saturday night when we jump in the show. And David McIlrath's coming in also. Good evening, Broncos country. Tom, Ron, and Deacon Scott. Buckham, Mile High Huddle for life. Denver Broncos for life. Thank you for
Thanks,
that
David.
very much. Appreciate it. And let's jump in a little bit to let's talk a little bit about what we came here to talk about since we got the news out of the way, and that is free agency. The Broncos have holes to fill, Ron. There's no doubt about it. They've got some players leaving, and they have some needs for sure because there were some definite needs that we saw in 2022. What, in your mind, is the biggest need for this Broncos coming into 2023 offseason?
Yes, Broncos do have some holes to fill for sure. I would say the biggest need, and it's a big glaring need. I think everyone is aware the offensive line, and I
Sure.
think it's the entire. Well, I wouldn't say the entire because they're Garrett Bowles. We'll see what comes from him. Right next season, but definitely the interior of that offensive line is definitely a big need. Obviously, we know at right tackle we'll have to get that addressed either in free agency and or the draft. The Broncos need to stabilize that position. It's a position that's been of need for years, and we need to get a strong hold of that position. Also, uh, left guard. As we all know, Dalton Reiser has been a big disappointment this season and season before, and bolstering that position is also, I think, a need for Denver. And then center.
Yeah.
We have to figure out what we're going to do at center. We see, of course, Cushionberry was way below average of what we
Sure.
saw. And Graham Glasgow, I think that the team can definitely do better. So I would say that the biggest need is definitely along that interior offensive line.
Well, I agree with you on the offensive line. I think the biggest issue has been right tackle, and has been since they moved Orlando Franklin to guard. And that was over a decade ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is that to me is the biggest need. I wrote about it. I've been talking about it for a while. I wrote an article about a week or so ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, that talked about who would be a good fit for right tackle. One of them was Jawaan Taylor. Now, before we really get into that, I'm going to grab Kathy Lund and say, thank you for coming in, Kathy. Appreciate it. Saying good evening, fam. We appreciate you being here. Thanks so much. It's great seeing you in the live chat. So just to talk about it. I mean, right tackle is the biggest need, and it has been for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's been a series of, and I also have another article coming out about why it is the biggest need. It's been a series of mistakes at right tackle, whether it be drafting players that didn't pan out or trying to grab free agents who also didn't pan out, overpaid. We got Juwan James, we got Stevenson, we have, Malik Watson. It's just been a conveyor belt of mistakes at that position. But you're right, it's offensive line without a doubt. We've got to fix the right tackle. Center is obviously a concern, and unless for some reason they think this new scheme will fit Cushionberry better. And I actually think a more power scheme is a better fit for him than it really was with the zone blocking scheme. So this regime may say we're going to keep him around, take another chance on him. So it's possible. And then, like you said, Dalton Reisner's probably gone in free agency. So those are three significant holes to fill. And you also have to remember Garrett Bowles coming back from injury. Is he going to be able to bounce back? What are they going to do with Garrett Bowles type of thing? So there could be up to 4 real needs that happen to take place on this offensive line this offseason. So they're going to need a right tackle. They're going to need a tackle for sure. They're going to need a guard, and they're going to need a center most likely. I like Jawaan Taylor. I've been saying it for a couple weeks. I think he's coming into his prime. And if you look at the article, this is an article I wrote. I used analytics based on how offensive linemen perform at their age. Jawaan Taylor is coming into his prime when offensive linemen start to take off in the NFL. It's a perfect time to grab him. I would not be afraid to give him like a 5-year contract even, because he's young. He's got the skill. He's got the he's reduced his penalties. He's reduced the sacks. He's reduced the pressures over his time at Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. And he has all the physical tools under the right coaching to be a really good player. How do you feel about Jawaan Taylor at that right tackle position?
Yeah, and I read this article, Thomas. It was well done, by the way.
Thank you.
And I actually, that was my top choice as well, Jawaan Taylor. When I saw the news that Jacksonville was gonna walk, I was like, well, that's the perfect pickup for Denver. What he was able to do with that Jaguars offensive line was great. And again, to your point, I think he's matured. We did see, near the beginning of his career, it was, the penalties, and we saw some, boneheaded moments. But as he started to progress, we did see the maturity, the growth. So I think, depending on the scheme that they run, I think he's kind of more so anyway scheme dependent. But him coming in to help solve this tackle position would be very great. And then I also see that you have Ben Powers, and Ben Powers is actually my second as well. maybe kind of coming in to fill that need. So I'm right there with you. I really think Jawan Taylor would definitely be a good ad for this line.
Absolutely. And it's funny because I'm seeing in the comments, Kathy came back in, says the last, I'll just drop it up here. The last Juwan we had in the O-line burned us, LOL. And that's funny. I mean, it's true. Obviously, Juwan James was a huge mistake. And unfortunately, that mistake cost the Broncos in dead cap space after they finally got rid of him. And he just didn't play and got injured. And so I wouldn't, I know that the name has a bad connotation out there, but I wouldn't worry about it. I think it's going to be a very different Jawan than we saw last time. And then, my feelings on this, and I think I've said this before, I don't think they can fix the offensive line with a bunch of stars. So if they go after Jawan Taylor, they are probably going to have to, I would say, cut down a little bit on the spending in the other, maybe one other position. They're going to have to bring in maybe a 1-year fix, hopefully at a cheaper price. So, the center position is intriguing to me. And so, the left guard position, I think it would be nice to get Ben Powers if they could, but Evan Brown and Nate Davis also fit that bill in my mind. So I think it's a good, grabbing those.
Mm-hmm. And there's one thing I want to say. Yeah. So I think to what you're saying as far as cutting down, I agree there as well. Where for a right tackle you have to pay a premium, right? We all know that is a staple position. And should be the most stable position, right, on the offense, right, making sure that your sides are protected, right, for your quarterback. So I can see them going big with a 5-year, 6-year deal for Jawan Taylor if that's their true top target. But then you have to look at the other one, center, right? If we do target a Connor McGovern, is he willing to come in at a little bit of a lower rate, right? And then also looking at draft prospects, right? Because I think we do need to maybe look at some of these draft prospects to see how they can kind of help fill out at least the interior. So there's a lot of different ways, factors, options that the Broncos can go. But I would say with the combination of free agency and looking at those draft prospects, I think that'll definitely at least get the offensive line in the right direction.
Sure. And before I talk a little bit again more about the offensive line, I just want to say thank you to Bridge the Gap coming in with a super. Appreciate it. Thanks for the support. Saying loving the show, Jawan Taylor, please. And it looks like we have a lot of Jawan Taylor fans in the chat, and Bridge the Gap saying that as well. So thank you very much for the support. I will say this: there's no reason why they shouldn't spend the money on right tackle. It's not like it used to be where left tackle was the premier. Many of the premier pass rushers are rushing over the right tackle now. You need to solidify that position. If you have to spend a little extra, if you think Jawan Taylor is your guy, go out and get him. He's young. He's coming in to his prime. It's time to go out there and spend a little extra to shore up that right tackle position because it's an important position. Kathy Lund coming back in with another idea, Mike McGlinchey, offensive tackle. I've liked him since he was drafted, she says. Yeah, that's a name that's popping out, man. What do you think, Ron? Mike McGlinchey.
That's a good name. Yeah, I've been a McGlinchey fan ever since he was drafted as well, Kathy. So maybe the Broncos go and target him, and I think he definitely fit this offensive line in this scheme. So having him come in to help out, I think that's also the way I would rank him, I guess if you will, is Jawan Taylor's my top target. And then it would be Mike McGlinchey, then Ben Powers, and then down the list. But that would definitely be a nice second option if we weren't able to get to Jawan Taylor.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, McGlinchey's the only difference, but really for me, is he's a little bit older, so he's kind of already in his prime. So you may not feel as bold about going out and spending more money or giving a longer term contract to McGlinchey because he is 28. He's going to be 29 during the season, I believe. So that's the only hesitation I have. But yeah, he's a good player. I think either of those two would be great to go out and grab to shore up that line, and then go find the other two interior spots, like we said, Ben Powers, and even some older guys that you might take a chance on for hoping to get one last hurrah out of them as well. So there's a few options out there, but they're going to have to be aggressive.
Yes, And we got Phil McLaughlin coming in here. Thank you, Phil. Good evening, Thomas, Ron, and Deacon Scott. Well, we actually have Chad here tonight, but we'll give ourselves to Deacon Scott. What do you guys think about Connor McGovern? MHH for life. Hashtag Buckham. So, Phil, yeah, we did talk about Connor McGovern, I think in the last show, and then we just kind of mentioned him here as well. But yeah, if we're looking to upgrade center, Connor McGovern's my top target. I think him coming back would be a great value add for this team. Now, it really depends on kind of what he's asking, right? You know, as we just mentioned, it's right tackle, which I would focus, investing heavily on that position. And then it's really depending on what Connor McGovern wants. But I would definitely be all for McGovern coming back to kind of shore up that center position. What do you think, Thomas?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bummer they let him go to begin with.
True.
They
You're right.
kind of gave up on him a little early. He got a little bit of money to leave in free agency, but that was another player on that they drafted on the offensive line that was coming into their prime. Right? He was coming into his prime. He was had just turned 26, and he was getting ready to take that next step. And unfortunately, he left, and he did take that next step. So.
Yes.
That was a bummer. But yeah, I mean, Connor McGovern, to bring him in, I think he's going to command some pretty decent money. Yeah. And so that's the only thing that if you pay Jawan Taylor, say the Broncos are able to get them, can they afford another big contract along that offensive line, knowing that they've got to get at least one more? You can't count on the draft picks coming in and stepping in, right? They are with late round picks that the Broncos have, I just don't see that you can just bank on a draft pick coming in. So they're either going to have to try and, stick with what they have. Some of the backup players that they've had on the Broncos that stepped in for Reisner and Miners or Glasgow when they were hurt, maybe take a chance on that. But yeah, I don't know. It just depends on how much he's willing to take to come back to Denver. And I just want to say thank you, Phil, for those Facebook stars. We really appreciate it. Thanks for the comment. We got Mike S. coming in. McGovern would be a great signing. Yeah, I would. Just bring him back, bring him back into the fold, so to speak. It's a bummer that they let him walk, but I think they weren't willing to pay him that amount of money.
Agreed.
So,
yeah. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. So, yeah, I guess we've kind of mostly talked about offensive line. Now, another position, if we can switch gears here, it would be running back.
Yep.
So now, the news has been out there that, Javonte Williams, and it's to be expected that he was going to miss a little bit more time into the 2023 season. That has become a need. Now, of course, we would like to see Latavius Murray come back, right? There's a history there with Sean Payton. And, I think Chase Edmonds they're going to probably let walk. So it's, now you're seeing this position come up. And I know the hot name out there has been, Saquon Barkley, Miles Sanders. Now, of course, again, these folks are going to demand some high dollar. And for me, running back is one of those. It's still a good and important position, but it's more of a diminishing position, which I think you could find in the draft as well. But it would be nice to have someone, with some veteran experience come in to help out Latavius Murray. So I guess, Thomas, who do you see, I guess, on the market maybe that can come in on the running back side and be a good fit for this offense?
Well, it's funny. I mean, the cupboard is bare, right?
Yeah.
The Latavius Murray isn't, he's not guaranteed to come back. And I've been saying Javonte Williams may not even return at all for a long time. That injury was devastating. He may not be his normal self. So the cupboard is bare. They're going to have to do something. Edmonds has to be gone for his production and his price tag. It's not worth it. So you're going to see basically nobody back there. So they're going to have to bring in more than one and hope, maybe Murray. I mean, he kind of earned that contract, but what scares me is he's a little older. So if he's willing to take a 1-year deal, kind of stick around for a year and play, that's fine. I don't mind it as long as it's not going to break the bank. But there's a couple names that I kind of been kicking around. I like Alexander Madison. I like Devin Singletary, and I like David Montgomery. All young players who haven't been overly used, who could probably not cost a lot, and kind of fill out that Broncos running back room for a couple years until they can find a draftee that comes in and takes over, or until Javonte Williams is back to his old self. Those are kind of mine. I don't really, I mean, I know Josh Jacobs is out there. He's going to command a big contract. And frankly, his big year this last year may be his big year. That may be his peak year. And now you're paying for something that's not quite as good as it was the year before. And we got Todd Ostendorf saying Jerick McKinnon. That name's been floating around. What do you think of Jerick McKinnon?
Yeah, that was a name that I was considering as well. I think Jerick McKinnon would be okay. I mean, you can do worse, in my opinion. I don't think he would demand like high dollar. So him coming in to kind of help somewhat shore up, solidify that backfield would be good. I like one of the names you mentioned, Thomas. Devin Singletary. I think him coming in could possibly be good. And Alexander Madison would be very good as well. I was looking at some film from both of those running backs, and I think their style of running would definitely be well for this offense. So I can see them going that route. Those are kind of more the mid tiers, if you will, running backs. I wouldn't command high dollars, so I can see them going that direction with Latavius Murray to help somewhat shore up that backfield. Yep.
I'm gonna quickly answer my thoughts on McKinnon. Just his age is a little bit worrisome. Already 30, going to give. I know he hasn't rushed a lot, but he's kind of going on that downside. So it better not be a big, long-term contract. It's the only thing. But otherwise, I think he's still got some tread left on the tires. Might be good. We're gonna grab Leroy Williams here, coming in from Facebook, bringing back a name that's near and dear to a lot of Broncos and Colorado fans. He says, me personally, I'd bring Philip Lindsay to camp just to see what he has left. He can fit perfect in this offense with Sean Payton. What do you guys think? Well, I have some thoughts on Philip Lindsay, and it's a little bit, I've got to bring back an older name. So I'm going to let Ron jump in here first, and then I'm going to give a little history about someone that was the Broncos that reminds me a little of Philip Lindsay.
Yes, and again, thank you, Leroy. Appreciate it. So Philip Lindsay coming back, I think, well, Broncos fans, I think, would be happy. I know that for sure. What Philip Lindsay was able to do, Leroy, during his tenure in Denver was just tremendous, right? And with him, you get that explosion. I know the knock on him was that he was not really able to block. He wasn't more of a power run. He can really catch, but just the dynamic play that he was able to make, just taking the ball, and he can go 50 yards, 60 yards down the field. And so I think part of that would be very nice. We know how Sean Payton likes to scheme and have those big explosive plays as well. And him coming in, being the dynamic playmaker that he is, would help. However, I really think those bridges have somewhat burned. I don't see Philip Lindsay coming back. Just because, they had the opportunity to keep him, and, George Payton, let him go. So I don't see it realistically happening, but him coming in, if they were to do it, if I were to be proven wrong, I think that would definitely be great for Denver Broncos.
Yeah. I mean, it would be a fan favorite for sure. And he doesn't fumble. So you can't, that is valuable. We saw Melvin Gordon fumbling away games. So that's valuable. But this is the problem that I don't have a problem with Philip Lindsay. This is the problem that offensive coordinators have with Philip Lindsay. When he's not great in pass protection, and he's not for some reason, he's not been a real big receiving threat. So that's that. But here's the issue. And I call it the Gaston Green effect. And why I call it that is Gaston Green was a running back in, the early 90s, was supposed to be the big star, and he never made it in the NFL, but he got a 1,000-yard season with the Broncos. But what he brought was really explosive plays that were also married to a bunch of 1 yard, 0 yard, 1 yard loss gain, rushes that just drove offensive coordinators kind of crazy, because you can't just go, okay, now it's time for that 60-yard run for a touchdown, because you just don't know when it was going to happen. It was a bunch of runs that weren't, and Philip Lindsay is not quite that bad. Gaskin Green is that, he's kind of the leader of that. But Philip Lindsay would do that. He would have some shorter runs and then break a big one, but you can't rely on that every time. And I think that's what frustrates offensive coordinators with Philip Lindsay. I like the guy. I mean, having him not fumble and just try and churn out a few yards here and there is fine with me in spurts, but to be a reliable running back, you have to have that consistent gaining yards if you're going to rush the ball all the time. And I think that's been the problem with Philip Lindsay, and that's why he's kind of bounced around the league. Even though he had a couple good seasons with the Broncos, if you go back and look at his games, a lot of them were, not very many yards until he got a big run, and that's kind of how he got those, not quite as bad as Gaston Green, but kind of that effect. And I think, like I said, that kind of drives offensive coordinators a little bit crazy. So I would rather take a chance on somebody else coming in than bringing back Philip Lindsay. But it'd be nice to have him back in the fold, so to speak, kind of like Connor McGovern.
Well, I think, and I agree with part of that, Thomas. I think some of these past coaching staffs didn't really use Philip Lindsay to his potential at times.
That's true.
Right? So you have one of the best play callers now in Sean Payton. And again, based on the dynamicism of Philip Lindsay, there could be some explosive plays, some power runs, a lot of things. We just don't know until he's used correctly. So that might be something to kind of think about as they're kind of examining. Again, I really don't see it happening, him coming back, but that's just kind of one thing to consider.
Absolutely. And we have D Generation X coming in with a super chat. So we appreciate it. Much obliged. Thank you so much. And he says, if we're going to get it running back, let's hit the home run, go after Barkley. I don't want none of these second-rate backs like the Buffalo back. Saquon Barkley is a big name, obviously a playmaker. He goes out there. I mean, he had a great year coming off, an injury. I think Saquon Barkley obviously is probably the star of the class, him and Josh Jacobs. Mm-hmm. But there's always that fear with the older running backs, right? I mean, he's not. It's hard to say older running backs. I mean, the guy's only 26, right? He's coming in. He's going to probably be 27 when he hits that season, but he's got over 900 carries already in the NFL. If you look at that age analysis that's out there, though, you can look at the running back one. I know the offensive lineman was up here. Running backs start to fall off the cliff after 26 years old. Their peak's 26, and then from then it's downhill. We're going to go out and pay big money for Saquon Barkley, who may have already peaked. I don't know. I mean, you see really good running backs. There's a few that last in the league a lot longer and productive. It just scares me to go out and get a Saquon Barkley with a high dollar amount. It's going to cost money to get Saquon Barkley, and you're paying for what he's done. I keep saying that over and over. Free agency should be dollars given to people for their productivity to come, not paying for what they've done in the past. And for my dollar, I wouldn't want to do much more than a 3-year contract and not a lot of money, because there's other holes to fill that'll be more beneficial. So that's my thoughts on Saquon Barkley. I appreciate the comment. What's your thoughts, Rob?
Perfectly said, Thomas. And again, thank you, D Generation X, for your chat. Much appreciated. Perfectly said. He's going to command a lot of money. And, I was glad that he was healthy this past season. But again, you can't bank on that moving forward. We know Saquon Barkley has, with his short stint in the league, had a very long injury history. And we just don't know, how he's going to hold up, if he's going to even sustain. And, we've already paid him a lot. That's why I'm saying the Denver Broncos probably need to look at some of those mid-tier running backs that wouldn't demand so much money. But not taking nothing away from Barkley's game, right? We all know what Saquon Barkley can do. Very, very powerful runner. Can of course run it well. Can catch it well. Comes in blocker. So we know what Saquon Barkley's capabilities are. It's just the injury history that fears me. And then you're going to give him this high dollar contract. That's my concern.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely. And for my money, I would probably, I don't know. I might give it to Jacobs rather than
Hmm.
Barkley, just because Jacobs been durable. I don't.
Yeah.
But either one, it just scares. It scares me to give out a high dollar contract
Yeah.
to running backs on
Yeah.
long term. That once they've hit that first contract, it's pretty much downhill.
Agreed. Agreed. We got Gary Palmer coming in here. Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it. Good evening, Thomas, Ron, and Scott. I'm just taking a wait and see tude. I'm eager to see how the Sean and Russ show looks. MHH for life. Hashtag Buckham. Well, thank you, Gary. Appreciate the super chat as always. Thank you for joining us today. So, yeah, I think that's kind of to a degree we have to be like that, Gary. It's you know every season we've we've always had high hopes. We've always been optimistic. This is going to be a new year, a new season, right? New coach coming, new regime comes in. It's going to be, we're going to do better. We're going to have a winning record. Um, and while it's a little more encouraging this year, because we have a known and proven commodity in Sean Payton, part of you still holds your breath. Part of you is still kind of on the edge just because, yeah, we have Sean Payton, but the question remains, can he fix Russell Wilson? And I think that's where that wait and see tude comes into play. So we'll see what play calling, what scheme, right? How Russ adjusts. If Russ has to listen to this coaching. I know he said he wants to be coached well and coached hard by Sean Payton. And I think, at least for me, I know that's where that wait and see attitude comes into play. What do you say, Thomas?
Yeah, absolutely. I've said that on here before. And Gary, you're a legend in Mile High Huddle. So thank you. Appreciate you coming in with that super. We love the support. Keeps us here and talking so we can bring you our thoughts and then listen to your thoughts as well. So make sure that you, support all the shows. So thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, I've been saying that, I want to be excited, but I was too excited about Fangio with his whole death by inches thing. I was a little too excited about Hackett going to bring in this, incredible offense, and I just I'm doing the same thing. I'm just going to wait and see. Like I love talking about the Broncos. I love being optimistic. I'm probably too optimistic about the Broncos at times, and I have been the last 6 years for sure. But you're right, man. We've got to just kind of sit back. That's why I'm not jumping on the let's ride or the buck 'em too much. I want to see the wins come. And then we can start to say, okay, now we're back, because it's been a long time. And, for someone like me that's been watching since very early in the 80s, that seeing all that success, now I really am just going to taking a couple deep breaths and hoping this thing works out. And I really think it will. But like I said, I'm hoping it works out. Keith Brugman coming in. Facebook. Thank you, Keith. It's great seeing you
Thank
here.
you.
See you on the show. See you on other shows, Legends of Mile High. See you on Mile High Insiders. It's great. And Keith says, I'm all about Kareem Hunt as free agent running back. I'm a little, I don't know. I'm not a big Kareem Hunt fan after all the character issues. So he's probably got plenty left on the tires. But, as a fan of, the football, but also a fan of character, I'm not gonna jump on that. I'm sure he would help, but I think there's others in my mind that can come in and do well as and maybe he's repented and he's changed his ways or whatever. But it was the same thing that I kept saying about Sean Payton. I didn't like his character issues. I was a little disappointed that that's who they got, only for that reason. Not that he's not a good running back, and not that Sean Payton's not a great coach. I do, there's part of me wants these leaders of men and everything to be high, at least have some moral character to go with it. So but thank you for that comment. What do you think about Ron, about Kareem Hunt, Ron?
Yeah, I agree to an extent, Thomas, with the character issues such in the past. I would hope he's kind of learned his lesson and we've moved on. Now I will say for Kareem Hunt, he is a very dynamic playmaker, and
Sure. Absolutely.
what we can, again, I'm not saying that he is like Alvin Kamara, but of course we were able to see Alvin Kamara and Sean Payton's offense. So I can see them looking at Kareem Hunt, bringing him in to kind of somewhat fit that role, right? Of
Absolutely.
running it, catching it out of the backfield, right? Lining up outside, right? Kind of doing all of these different, lining up all these different ways and scheming him open in every which way. So it wouldn't be the worst. Still think there are better options out there. And given the characters in the past, I wouldn't be the biggest fan, but the Broncos could do a lot worse.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good running back, and like you said, he can definitely make plays. I mean, we've seen it out there. So it's nothing against his skills on the field. And let's face it, it all comes down to winning in the NFL. This is an entertainment business, and if you're not winning, then you're not getting butts in the seats. So I get it completely, but just for me, I would rather look to other players than Kareem Hunt. Phil
We got Phil
McLaughlin.
coming in.
Oh, go for it, Ron. Sorry for jumping in
No
there.
worries. Yeah, we got Phil McLaughlin. Thank you, Phil, for coming in. Always appreciate your support. He says there are a couple guys I think could be possible help. Fletcher Cox and Deron Payne. What do you guys think? So I'll actually let Thomas answer this
Yeah.
one first, because these are two that actually are top of my mind. But I'll let you go first and get your thoughts.
Yeah, I think that the defensive line is a sizable need. It's one of my top 4 needs for the Broncos to address the defensive line, and part of that has to do with uh, Demar. Draymond Jones potentially leaving. That's going to be a big hole to fill, and I know we've all been waiting for Draymond Jones to take that leap into stardom. He's been on the cusp for the last couple of years, and he's everybody's breakout player. He's going to be the star. He's a good player. He's a very good player, and if the Broncos let him walk, that's going to leave big holes. But you got Deshaun Williams is gone. He's an unrestricted free agent too. So they're right now they're looking at the 2 starters or 2 potential starters are Mike Purcell, who's getting up there a little bit in age, and DJ Jones, whom I love. I think he was a great signing, but you still got some holes to fill. Fletcher Cox and Deron Payne. I mean, Deron Payne's they're probably both going to command a pretty sizable contract. I don't know I should look on SpotRec here to see what their market value is, but I think both of them are going to come with a fairly sizable price tag. Both of them are great players, though. I would take them both. If that's where the Broncos want to spend their money, I would be happy with it. The Broncos, I like Jones, that he's an interior pass rusher. They need to get a little bit more pressure on the inside, but getting the edge rushers healthy will probably help that out a lot. But yeah, I like both players. So you let me know what you think. You said that they're high on your list.
Yeah, I like them both. Those are two that I've been hoping that the Broncos have been looking at. Again, it all comes down to what they're going to command, right? Again, it's all about what their asking price is, and they're probably going to want a pretty penny. You're right. The defensive line is a concern of mine as well, and as great as Draymond Jones is, or as solid as he is, I should say, we don't know his future, right? If they're going to let him walk, he's going to test free agency. Mike Purcell, as you mentioned, a little long in the tooth, but we definitely need to look at, I would say, targeting maybe someone like one of those premium type players, and then maybe like a mid-tier person on the defensive side or defensive tackle to kind of help shore that up. Because
Yeah.
I'm just concerned, Deshaun, it's Draymond, and you're right, DJ Jones is great. And I think he's a good foundational piece, but it's, do we have enough on the rest of the line to generate that interior pressure? And I don't see it. So I definitely do need to have that looked at for sure.
And I'll tell you, I don't think they need to spend a lot of money getting depth. I think they need to get another really solid starter. I
Yeah.
love the 2 rookies. I love Uzurike, and I
Yeah.
really love Henningsen. I think both of them played admirably when they had the opportunity, and I think both of them will provide good depth. And I think it was Uzurike. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Maybe I'm not. I think
Uzurike.
okay.
Uzurike.
I think he is going to be eventually a solid starter. in that position. So I think if they don't retain Draymond Jones, which I think is a mistake, I think they need to retain him. If they don't do that, they're going to have to find another star to go alongside DJ Jones and hope that one of those two rookies can step in or bring in another rotational player maybe. But I think they need to re-sign Jones and get another person opposite him that can really get after the passer. And I think that's prudent. But the depth, I'm not really worried about.
Yeah, agreed. You're right. Uzurike and Henningsen has definitely shown some flashes. And so again, I'm to your point. I'm not really worried about the depth as much. It's just who's going to be on the starting defensive line, and
that's right.
Only time will tell. So I agree.
Absolutely. D-Generation X coming back in with a super. Man, this is awesome. We thank you so much. This is great to see you on here. I mean, we love your comments. So, and you've got another good one here. All I'm trying to say is if we're going to, after running back and free agent, get a home run. Absolutely. Get home run hitters. I would like to see it in the draft. I think it says Texas running back or the Texas A&M running back home run hitters. I agree with you. We need to see the Broncos go after valuable impact players. That's what they need to do. They have been lacking those impact players. And you're right. I would rather see it in the draft. And that's my whole point is I agree with you in this, that you need an impact player for this offense at running back. I just don't want to see them spend a lot of money to do it and then see that investment not be realized, because that's what happens with running backs. And if they can find mid to late round running back where they lock into it and hit a home run, that would be incredible. That's where you need to find it, is in the draft. I think if you can make sure that you get enough stars on the offensive line, I think you can get away with a lesser running back than the opposite. If the offensive line is bad, you're probably not going to have, even if you have a great running back, it's probably not going to be as valuable or as impactful as the other way around. Having more impactful players on the offensive line will make some of these, lesser running backs better. So spend the money there and then hopefully hit on a running back in the draft like they did with Javonte Williams. Great running back, just unfortunately had a major knee injury. What do you think about that philosophy that I'm spewing out there, Ron? Am I off base?
No, you're not off base. And, again, for me, it's always been the offensive line, defensive line. It starts in the trenches, guys. We have to make sure that the trenches are built up to almost perfect as they can be. So the quarterback is protected, and then these lanes, these gaps can open up for, these running backs to see holes and kind of get through these gaps. And we could always find a running back in the draft. I know we talked about, some options in free agency with running back, but the biggest, most pressing, most important thing that they have to do is fix the offensive line. And then once that's fixed, any running back can thrive, right? And, I'm with you where, because it's such a diminishing position, I don't see them needing to spend high dollar on it. Spend all that high dollar on the offensive line, not a running back. And then your point, it's Javonte Williams was drafted. So hopefully that will help kind of speed things up. So we'll see.
Can you hear me? I kind of lost you there, Ron. I don't know if I can hear you any longer.
Yes.
But so I might be having some technical difficulties. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I can't hear you for some reason. So it's very odd. But I'm going to grab Gary Palmer here while I'm figuring out what the heck's going on with my headphones. And he says, I know it's been said, but if we get the O-line fixed, like we were just saying, we can turn mid-level running backs into superstars. Love you, Broncos country. Smartest fans in the NFL. Thank you for the super chat, Gary. Again, you're a legend in Mile High Huddle and Broncos country. So thank you so much for that. And you hit, you're right. You agree with this, which, obviously makes you right. So thank you for that. And that's what we're saying, right, Ron? We're talking about getting a less, and the Saints got away with, Mark Ingram's a pretty solid running back, but not a great running back. And they used him for a while, and he was he's a decent running back for him. He wasn't Alvin Kamara, but they may do with that running back. Yeah, I'm still having trouble hearing you, so I apologize, Ron. So I don't know what's going on, but I can see you, I can talk, and I cannot hear you. So I don't know if you can hear me okay, but I think it's been a great conversation. We got Tim Durr coming in. I don't know if you read it. Really appreciate you coming in, talking about middle linebacker, covering the tight ends. And unfortunately, we're just kind of running low on time and with the technical difficulties. Ron, if you can hear me, will you kind of sign us off just to make sure that everybody can hear you?
Can you hear me now?
having problems.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I think we're good.
Okay.
So yeah. I guess we can grab Tim's comment here, and then we can get. So yeah, we need a stud middle linebacker who can cover tight ends. Yeah. So Tim, that has been the issue that has been plaguing the Broncos for years. Uh, we definitely need to get the middle linebacker issue resolved. So obviously, we know we have Alex and Singleton. So it's been Josie Jewell, right? We know, but we need someone that can cover, and hopefully we can find that person in the draft. And I know there may be a few free agents. I haven't looked at all the middle linebacker free agents out there. I don't know if Thomas maybe wants to pull up a list, but there could be some middle linebackers we maybe target in free agency. But this this is definitely a need because we just cannot have the Travis Kelce's of the world just running wild, right? We've had that plague us so long, and so it's time to address this as soon as we can. So hopefully that's something they look at. My preference would be more in the draft to kind of get someone that has that high ceiling and making sure that they develop into that dynamic linebacker. So
Yeah, and I'll tell you, there's a few names out there. The problem that I love Singleton. I mean, I love the throwback linebackers, the tackling machines. The problem with Singleton is, in my mind, there's not enough impact plays. There needs to be some impact plays out of that linebacker position if you're going to play a lot. I think you can go after Tremaine Edmonds if you want to spend a little bit of money. I think he's going to be a coveted commodity. The other person who's, I think, a Singleton clone, but just happens to be younger, if you want to go out and pay money for somebody's Bobby Okrike, I think is the way it's pronounced. Mm-hmm. I think he's an option. He's going to be lower priced. And then finally, if you want to take a chance on an older guy who can come in and shore up what you've been missing, take a chance on Levante David. Just go pay him a little bit of money, 1-year contract. I think that's an option. But I think you're right. I think they need to address that inside linebacker crew. I think it's a lot of kind of throwbacks and not real good for today's NFL. We got Keith Brugman coming in with the stars. Appreciate the support. Thanks so much. It says, with the holes the Broncos have and very little capital to address it, do we see Dalton Reisner as a Bronco in 2023, 2024? Now, I think when you look at Spot Rack on paper, they don't have a lot of capital right now, as far as financial capital, salary cap. But they're going to make 3 cuts, most likely. That's going to free up a lot of capital. Edmonds at running back, Glasgow, and probably Darby. That's going to give you about $30 million to work with in the salary cap. So I think they do have some free agency cap to work with, so they can fill some of those holes. But Keith, you're right. You can't fill them all with stars. You can't go out and spend a bunch of money and fill it all with stars because that's just not how it works. So you got to make some sacrifices in different places. And I don't think they should sacrifice at right tackle. And I don't think they should sacrifice at defensive line. I think they need to sacrifice at the inside linebacker probably and sacrifice at running back. Ron, am I off base or what do you think? You think that works?
Yeah, that works. So you're not too far off base. So yeah, definitely no need to sacrifice. We cannot sacrifice at right tackle. We cannot sacrifice at center. Right? We
Sure.
have to make sure that those for sure are stabilized positions. We get the right players to come in and fill those voids. Now you're right. We can sacrifice a bit at inside linebacker, running back, maybe receiver. Maybe it's good to maybe bring in another receiver because again we do have already a lot of weapons, playmakers on offense. But yeah, those two on the offensive line and definitely the defensive line, just because of how weak the defensive line is now, and we can only bolster that side of the ball. We definitely need to get in some players. So I agree. I agree with you. I don't think you're too far off base. We share brain.
Yeah. Yeah. And, that's the thing with the salary cap. It can be massaged. Money can be moved around. They're going to figure it out. Gina Cooper, appreciate you coming in. Facebook stars, thank you very much. Glad to see you in the chat. Coming in to say glad to have you guys on tonight and hope everyone is enjoying their weekend. Broncos country. Yeah, I am, Gina, and I hope you are as well. I know Ron is. We are happy to come here on Saturday night and have you guys join us to talk Broncos, talk football. If it wasn't for you coming in to hear us, put the comments in the chat, support us, we wouldn't be here. So that's why we're here. So thank you very much. Ron, I know we've had some technical difficulties, so I think we should just kind of wrap up the show now. We talked a little bit about free agency. I think we got a lot of good stuff out there. So you got anything to say before we kind of wrap this up, Ron?
So again, it was great to be with all you guys tonight, as always, as every Saturday. And I'm liking what Peyton is doing. We did talk about kind of how he's filling out the coaching staff. So there's a good mix of young, good mix of old, and hopefully we'll see that pay dividends. And now we can start to see how this team is taking shape. And some of these candidates that we were talking about, some of these prospects in free agency, you may see in a Denver Bronco uniform soon. So look out for that.
Phil, coming in with a late Facebook star. Thank you very much. Man, he's got a great question here, and we're just about to wrap up the show, so we should definitely jump into this in a later show. But he says, well, guys, looking past free agency, who's our possible draft candidates? Ron, I know you're a big draft guy. I don't know if you've dove into what's coming up. Who's on your mind? I mean, the Broncos don't have high picks. I mean, we're looking at mid-rounders right now, like mid-round, diamond in the rough. Give me one guy that you like. Give me one guy that you like.
Yeah, I haven't had too much time to look at the draft picks here, Phil. Just because we do pick a little later. I've noticed some kind of near the beginning that we probably won't even be, in the selection of picking. But give me some time to look back at those, and I can definitely get you some of my top, those mid-tier that I may be drafted in the third round, the fourth round. I'll still kind of doing some digging, so just kind of give me some time, and I'll get back to you on that one.
And Phil, I'll tell you, Luke Patterson, our guy from he's on the show Mile High Insiders with me. He writes stuff. Go check out his stuff. He was at the Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl, and he had a running back, I believe, and I'm drawing a blank on his name, and I'm sorry. Go check it out. I liked him too, and for some reason, I don't know. It must be age. I keep blanking on people's names, so I'm sorry. There's a running back I believe he was talking about at the Shrine Bowl. Really looking forward to. Going to be maybe a later round pick. So check that out. Check out the rest of the Mile High Huddle group. We got a good podcasts. We've got if you want some history, Legends of Mile High with me Friday mornings. We've got something every evening now and almost every morning. So we got Mile High Huddle. We got Building the Broncos, Broncos for Breakfast. We got it all covered. Check out the site for some other in-depth writings about Broncos news and free agency and draft. So with that, I'm just going to say thank you all for joining. Thank you all for the support. And we'll say good night and have a great evening and a great Sunday.
Thanks, everyone. Go Broncos.